A very good evening and welcome to this Sunday's edition of News First Weekend, coming to you live from our News1st studios in Colombo. I'm Arundhati Mudannaika. Let's start off with a look at the stories making headlines this evening.
A special meeting between the President and the Prime Minister. UNP ministers to convene at Temple Trees tonight. Cabinet of Ministers summoned to the Presidential Secretariat tomorrow on the orders of the President. Third body found at the site of the collapsed building in Vallavatta. Building owner arrested. Chairman of the Elections Commission comments on the delay of local government elections. Dengue fever spreads rapidly. Public hospitals overwhelmed. GMOA to strike again. Government is committed to expanding Youth Village program. A statement from the Housing Minister Sajid Premadasa.
Now the stories in detail. President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe are to hold a special meeting at the Temple Trees in a short while. We now cross live to News First Shahin Jurangpati outside Temple Trees. Shahin?
Well, that is right, Arundhati, and good evening all our viewers. Well, reports have suggested that President Maithripala Sirisena is set to meet with Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe at Temple Trees. Coincidentally, moments after Minister Gayantha Karunatilaka announced that Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe is set to meet with all UNP cabinet ministers at Temple Trees at 9:30 tonight, and after President Maithripala Sirisena has invited all cabinet ministers, deputy ministers and state ministers to at the Presidential Secretariat tomorrow, on the heels or in the backdrop where there are hints of a cabinet reshuffle. Now, the situation is quite cloudy. We do not know much information. However, there are reports that several high-profile ministers' positions are at stake, while some are to be promoted. Now, as you can see, Minister Kabir Hashim just drove in, and moments ago, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe also drove into the Temple Trees after Minister Sarath Fonseca and Malik Samaravikrama. As I mentioned before, Arundhati, the situation is quite unclear rather. And News First will, of course, we'll keep our eye on the ball and see what will happen at Temple Trees. It's back to the newsroom.
Thank you, Shahin, for bringing us the latest. Minister Gayantha Karunatilaka has announced that all UNP cabinet ministers will also be meeting with the Prime Minister at Temple Trees at 9:30 tonight. Now, this meeting comes on the heels of summons issued by President Maithripala Sirisena to all cabinet, state and deputy ministers to be present at the Presidential Secretariat at 8:30 tomorrow morning, amidst a backdrop where various factions have hinted of a possible cabinet reshuffle. However, State Minister of Finance Lakshmanya Pabewardena said the meeting tomorrow will focus on political, social and public issues. Joining us from the newsroom now with more information on the speculation surrounding a proposed cabinet reshuffle are Nadim Majid and Chaturanga Hapuarachi.
Thank you, Roy, for the chance. I'm going to tell you something interesting today. There's lots of excitement happening at the Temple Trees as we speak. As you said, I'm joined by News First Nadim Majid, friend and colleague. We are going to discuss about this cabinet reshuffle, the proposed cabinet reshuffle as we go along. Nadim, I want to ask you a question. Something is definitely going down at the Temple Trees this evening. Lots of senior ministers coming in. Did the UNP want to beat the SLFP into convening tonight and make the decisions so that they have upper hand when it comes to tomorrow?
This is the thing, Chaturanga Hapuarachi. I think that it's going to be more of a sort of a damage control situation. I think the Prime Minister will be looking to assuage the fears of the UNP cabinet ministers who may or may not be losing their positions or being transferred into other portfolios tomorrow. One thing straight off the bat is that this cabinet reshuffle is probably overdue, and in fact maybe it's reflective of disunity in the national unity government.
But Nadim, the government, when it came to power back in 2015, they promised that the cabinet will be limited to 35 MPs. Therefore, they had to amalgamate certain ministries like the Ministry of Highways and Higher Education, Southern Development and Law and Order.
See, but that made no sense in the first place. I mean, where in the world you find a Highways Ministry and a Higher Education Ministry merged together? From a simple logic standpoint, the appointment of the cabinet in the first place looks like a little hodgepodge of just chucking things into the pot
yes,
and trying to see if you can cook up something good. But it turns out that now they're not happy with the soup that's being cooked up.
Nadim, the government was put into place with the SLFP and the UNP. The president holds the power of the SLFP ministers, and the UNP leader, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, holds the power of the UNP ministers. Now, will there be a cross change? What I mean is, will the SLFP ministers and the UNP ministers be, certain ministers hold the SLFP positions? Will they be changed as well? Do you think so?
What do you mean that will they be changed? The SLFP portfolio?
Yes, whether the ministerial portfolio is held by SLFP ministers.
Shadran, can I tell you straight off the bat, as you said at the beginning, there's a lot of confusion and a lack of clarity surrounding this. And the best indicator of this is how the Sunday newspapers reported on this. We have one newspaper, it said there would be no shocks in the cabinet reshuffle, and that the president has summoned a crucial central committee meeting of the SLFP tonight. Meanwhile, another newspaper reported that tomorrow's cabinet reshuffle would be more extensive than what was previously thought, and that there were plump positions up for grabs.
Yes.
The thing is, the entire discussion surrounding this cabinet reshuffle has been quite frustrating, to say the least, because we've been compiling the news these past few days, and we've heard what's being said by various ministers, state ministers and deputy ministers.
Yes, definitely.
Right? I believe you'll be hearing that again on the news tonight as well, where people they seem to be only interested in getting that boost up to cabinet ministerial position.
As you said, this cabinet reshuffle is long overdue, but will this make a difference at the end of the day? That is what the people want. Concrete decisions, concrete solutions. Will this be a concrete solution to whatever problem that is there in our country?
This is the issue. It will be a difference to those who are about to become cabinet ministers, to those who are about to be transferred to other ministerial portfolios. Whether it will make a difference to the rest of the country remains to be seen. Time will tell. Maybe those who are or who could be appointed to the cabinet will do maybe a better job than their predecessors. Maybe those who are being transferred will do a better job in their other portfolios than they are doing currently. But the thing is, history is not on their side. Maybe
these new ministers or the promotions that the deputy ministers will receive, if they are to receive any, they'll maybe deliver on the promises that the government has made so far when it came into power.
There are many promises that the government is yet to deliver on. There are many promises made in the 100-day plan that we are still waiting on 2.5 years later. These include the National Audit Bill, the repeal of the Prevention of Terrorism Act and repealing and replacing the Prevention of Terrorism Act with something more humane. So these are some of the promises that we're still waiting on, that the government is yet to deliver on. And to top it all off, you've also got the central bank bond, the alleged central bank bond scam.
We have a story coming up on that
coming up on that as well in the bulletin, where that's also been going on now for so long.
Yes.
So, I mean, if the cabinet was to be reshuffled, it should have been done sometime. In fact, what should have been done is appoint the right cabinet in the first place.
Thank you, Nadim. We are going to go back to the studio, but before that, several public representatives have also expressed their views today, during the day, about the cabinet reshuffle. Let's have a listen to that and head back to the main studio.
They said a new cabinet would be appointed, but has it been done? This is apparently happening tomorrow. If at most, those in this room would be shifted to the other, there will be no difference. The government is trying to go in for a public referendum over the constitution. Even the proposed cabinet reshuffle is being targeted at a public referendum, not the local government election. The government is trying to wash their hands off by throwing all the blame onto Ravi Karunanayake for all the crimes.
Moving on to another one of our headline-making stories, the state health services are overwhelmed with dengue patients, prompting calls from experts to declare a state of emergency. Wards at a number of hospitals are overcrowded with fever patients. The majority of them are being treated for dengue. While the period between January to May is considered the mild and low dengue season, this year over 47,000 dengue patients have been reported and 125 deaths so far.
The National Hospital is treating 160 fever patients at present, according to its director, Dr. Anil Jasinghe. The doctors have identified that 100 out of them are treated for dengue.
4 beds from each ward have been allocated for dengue patients.
119 patients are currently being treated for dengue fever at the Kalubovila Teaching Hospital. While 147 fever patients are receiving treatment at the Gampa Hospital, 93 are suspected to have dengue. These patients include 10 children.
I have been coming here for 3 days now. Dengue has spread rapidly in Valley area. I was made to sit on a chair in the ward for 3 to 4 hours. Then they laid a mattress on the ground. I received a hospital bed after patients were discharged. We cannot stay here. There are mosquito larvae everywhere.
148 fever patients are receiving treatment at the Ragamit Teaching Hospital, while 35 of them are suffering hemorrhagic dengue fever. 20 dengue patients are receiving in-house treatment at the Chilao Base Hospital.
Dengue larvae rapidly spread when clean water gets collected at places. What is important is to remove and clean such places where water gets collected at homes and public places. If some person has fever, that person has to be treated. It could be dengue, it could be a virus, or it could also be the other fever variant. If the patient is suffering from fever for more than 2 days, it is best to receive medical attention and take a blood test.
While there is a surge in the number of patients with fever at government hospitals, the Government Medical Officers Association is to launch yet another island-wide 24-hour token strike tomorrow. The Government Medical Officers Association said the strike will not affect maternity hospitals, pediatric hospitals, cancer hospitals, military hospitals and kidney treatment units.
The Executive Committee decided today to hold this strike action for a period of 24 hours tomorrow. We will not put the life of any patient under threat because of this strike action. However, whatever temporary inconvenience which will be caused to the patients is for their own greater good. So the government should be held responsible for this temporary inconvenience. We are actually disappointed about the protest against Saitam. Even though I mostly spoke towards that side, today I think that this protest is becoming quite an unfair one. For instance, doctors are going in for a strike action on Monday because tear gas was fired at university students. To whom is the loss? It is profitable to the government because electricity isn't used, ambulances do not operate and medicines aren't issued. So it is the innocent people who have to suffer. It is wrong to hold protests by holding patients as hostages. Some of these protests are actually politically motivated, which is quite disappointing. It is also wrong that protests which did not exist back then are being staged now.
The owner of the building which collapsed last Thursday in Valavatta has been remanded till the 26th of this month. He was remanded after being produced before the Mount Lavinia Magistrates Court today. The individual in question surrendered to police last evening and was placed under arrest.
3 people were killed when the 5-story building in Valavatta collapsed on the 18th of this month. The body of a woman who was trapped under the rubble was recovered today. The coroner at the Colombo South Teaching Hospital visited the scene of the tragedy today. Didn't the officials know for this long that this was an unauthorized construction? Didn't officials at the municipal council see this? Those in government should be held responsible for these deaths. Definitely. This happens in every municipal council, not only this one. Meanwhile, Minister of Megapolis and Western Development, Patali Champika Ranwaka, recently said there are around 1,800 illegal constructions in the Vallavatta and Bambalapitiya areas. The Urban Development Authority understood this and conducted surveys in this area from the 1st of February. We have received 1,800 complaints of illegal constructions and settlements. This threat is most prevalent in the Colombo, Dehiwala, Mount Lavinia and Kolonnawa municipalities. This building is in good condition. We granted approval for it. It is the V-shaped area that we did not approve that has collapsed. How did over 2,000 illegal constructions, including major buildings, come into being within the Colombo municipal limits? The following are the requirements that need to be met if an individual is to build a house within a municipal council area: an approved survey plan, street line and building line, non-vestive certificate, building application and approval, construction, the implementation and renewal of approvals after the lapse of approved construction timeframe, and a certificate of conformity or COC. When considering the building in Wallawatha, it collapses in 2017 and it was completed in 2014. If the CMC or the Urban Development Authority is saying that this is a building that was not approved and that is why it collapsed, then has the CEB provided an electricity connection to a building that was not approved? Has the National Water Supply and Drainage Board supplied water for a building that was not approved? When assessment rates are paid for any building to the Municipal Council, the amount is decided based on the number of square feet of the building. So did the CMC estimate the assessment rate only for the approved area or the entire building? Having received the assessment rate payment for several years, did they not know that the building was not approved? Raids should be conducted at local council levels in order to stop illegal constructions and to make sure that they are being constructed according to the proper standards. They need to take the necessary steps in this regard. According to the Construction Industry Development Act, the local government authorities are responsible for the plans. If the plans are not done by a qualified person, the local council should not approve it. They are not the ones who should be held responsible. It is the Municipal Council. I'm a politician who has done what I have said.
An awareness program was held in Gampaha today on the theme Universal Enfranchisement, Democracy and Sovereignty. The event was held under the auspices of Chairman of the Elections Commission, Mahinda Deshakriya.
At the conclusion of the program, journalists questioned the chairman of the Elections Commission on upcoming local government elections.
We have always maintained that three conditions must be fulfilled in order to hold local government elections. One is that the delimitations process must be completed and we must know what the electorates are. Second, the number of councillors to be elected to each authority must be gazetted. Both of these tasks have been completed by the Ministry of Local Government. It was their job and the Elections Commission was not involved in it. Third is the amendments to the Act, which have now been approved by the Cabinet of Ministers. I believe it has been directed to the legal draftsman and that it will be gazetted and sent to the Parliament for adoption. This may take about 1.5 months. The Commission has never been engaged in trying to postpone the election. This is being said in the newspapers. Prior to this, local government elections have been postponed when the Public Security Ordinance was in force. Since this is no longer the case, we do not expect that it will be postponed.
Hearings at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into bond issuances have been postponed for 2 weeks.
The Commission's Secretary, Sumatipala Udugamasuriya, said the decision had been made as Commission member Supreme Court Justice Prasanna Jayawardena had to travel overseas. Hearings will recommence on the 5th of June. More than 20 individuals have testified before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry so far. Presidential Commission of Inquiry appointed to investigate bond issuances, including alleged 10 billion rupees central bank bond scam. Presidential Commission of Inquiry into bond issuances commences hearings. Problems arise regarding an extraordinary gazette notification. Hearings postponed for 4 days. Chairman of the Commission says the IGP did not respond positively to a request to attach senior police officers to carry out the work of the Commission. Police respond to Commission Chairman's request. An ASP is attached to serve the Commission. Commission's term extended by 3 months on the orders of the President. Final hearing of witness testimony. Additional Director of the Information Technology Department at the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Wasantha Alves. Former Central Bank Governor Arjuna Mahendran's son-in-law, Arjun Aloysius, to be summoned to the Commission. Today, hearings postponed as one of the judges on the Commission has to travel overseas. For your attention.
A conference organised by the Citizens Power Organisation under the theme A New Constitution for a New Country was held in Venapur last evening.
Lasantha was murdered in Colombo and there is plentiful information on this. He was a good friend of Ranil Wickremesinghe, but it cannot be done. Why? Because it is a war hero or someone I know or an old friend. If that is the case, is there rule of law in the country? When they say they have investigated it, what happens? They are threatened. They get a call from Gotabe asking them to watch out. Mahinda calls and says, you watch what will happen when we come in. So the police and the magistrates in the courts are all shaking in fear when they try to serve justice.
Speaking at an event held in Anamanua today, the State Minister of Vocational Training and Skills Development, Palitharange Bandara, expressed strong opinions about the parliamentary minister in charge.
This is a very important ministry to secure productive futures for every young man and woman coming out of the school system. Unfortunately, who was defeated at the election is the minister at this ministry. I am sad that I have simply grown old there for 1.5 years. I have said this clearly to the President and the Prime Minister on several occasions. I have informed my party secretary, my party chairman and the President in writing. Let me work for the country. I do not need anything else.
The foundation stone was laid today for the 406th Udagamanya model village in Veeravilati Samaharama, which is being built under the Samata Sevana program. Minister of Housing and Construction Sajid Premadasa presided at the event.
The model village, which has been named Siyavirugama, is the first youth village being constructed exclusively for young newlyweds. The village will comprise of 27 homes. Minister Premadasa presented title deeds to the young couples. My friends, in the past, state-owned lands were used for the enjoyment and leisure of the children of the heads of state. This is a historic occasion where we will be distributing land to those between the ages of 18 and 35 who do not own anything. Some people ask us if we are satisfied with the change. I say to you now, you can see the change. I too could have had various parties on these lands with my friends. I wish to say to you now that the youth village concept will be expanded from the Hambantota district to the rest of the country.
The heartbreaking story of a 19-year-old young woman ended in tragedy this evening. Forced into marriage at the age of 14, Shamila Swapna suffered years of domestic violence. Eventually, she ran away from home seeking help from the police. Help was not what followed.
The police returned the young Shamila to her husband, apparently having brokered a reconciliation. But revenge was what her husband had in mind as he first threatened to kill their 7-month-old baby. Details of what then transpired in Nallandaluwa Madurankulya are yet to be confirmed, but Shamila was admitted to the Puttalam base hospital with severe burn wounds, reportedly set on fire by her husband. Shamila passed away this evening after an agonizing 14-day fight for her life and that of her unborn child. She was 4 months pregnant. Police confirmed the post-mortem examination will be carried out tomorrow. The husband is on the run.
UNP ministers have convened for a special meeting at Temple Trees. We are now joined by Newsfirst Shahin Jurangpati, who is outside Temple Trees following the developments. Shahin?
Well, thank you very much, Arundhati. Well, it is quite nerve-wracking outside Temple Trees here in Colombo, where several UNP cabinet ministers have already made their way into Temple Trees for a meeting with President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Now, earlier in the day, Minister Gayantha Karunatilaka said that President Sirisena will be meeting Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Now, tomorrow morning, President Sirisena has convened all cabinet, state and deputy ministers at the presidential secretariat. Now these reports comes amid hints that there may be a cabinet reshuffle. Now the question is there turmoil within the government? Is there disarray within the government? Is there a crisis within the government just 2.5 years into the election of the new government? Well, Newsfirst will keep our eyes open on the situation. We'll have a clear understanding of what the outcomes of these meetings will be. So stay with Newsfirst as we give you the latest on the meetings with the President and the Prime Minister and all UNP cabinet ministers.
Thank you, Shahin, for bringing us the latest. And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of Weekend Primetime News. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.